Hey everybody, it's John DeYoung, and today I want to talk about a plant-based diet. I myself was on one for about 6 months and I made some mistakes. I didn't really do my homework, which is really important in a plant-based diet because you have different nutrient to nutrient interactions in the same meal. You have higher or lower oxalate choices between plants to eat. I chose a lot of higher ones and didn't know that, which can mess up your stomach, which we're going to get into a little later. The bioavailability is the most important thing too. It's like if you're getting a nutrient, yeah, it says like this spinach has like X amount of calcium, grams of calcium, milligrams of calcium, but the amount that's actually absorbed is kind of shocking. So we're going to go through nutrient-nutrient interactions, things, higher oxalates, which mess up your stomach and block absorption. We're going to go through some of that, and I'm going to give you some ideas how to tweak your diet. There's a huge amount of benefits in a plant-based diet, so I'm not knocking that. Again, I tried it, but I want to share with you my mistakes, and hopefully you can tweak your diet and have a little more longevity in it and have a little more success than I did. So let's get right into it. So the food you eat needs to be digested and absorbed in the intestine. Now, in a plant-based diet, like I was saying before, some compounds can make this process more difficult for your body to do. There's something called anti-nutrients that can block digestive enzymes from reaching the food to be digested. Oxalates are a molecule that the plant produces to bind extra calcium. Now, this helps the plant function better, but when you eat the plant, it makes it that much more difficult for your body to digest and absorb that calcium. So we would say the calcium in that plant has low bioavailability, which means how much of the actual nutrient is absorbed into your body. So obviously if it's low, it has low bioavailability. So that's something you got to think about in a plant-based diet. Bioavailability is very tricky, and there's certain ways of increasing that. And again, we're going to continue on with that. So there's many factors that can affect bioavailability, like the presence of anti-nutrients, processing methods, and nutrient-to-nutrient interaction, like having different foods in the same meal that don't work well together and compete against absorption. So take spinach. Spinach is super high in calcium, but also has a low absorption rate because of the amount of oxalates in spinach. So there are a lot of other foods. These are high oxalate foods that you should avoid. We got beets, raspberries, rhubarb, almonds, potatoes, cashews, sesame seeds, and most soy products, and other ones you may see up here. Pumpkin, grapefruit, eggplant, nightshades. So cooking, soaking, and limiting your intake of high oxalate plant foods can also limit the negative effects of oxalates. Now, here is a list of low oxalate foods, plant-based foods. You got bananas, cantaloupes, broccoli, bok choy, celery, green beans, onions, peas, and what else? And squash, which is on here. And a lot of these can be eaten raw, which you would think cooking actually reduces the amount of oxalates. But these guys are already starting off on the low scale. So they can be eaten raw. They're not going to tear you up inside. That's kind of like spinach. Why cook it? It's already starting so low with the absorption rate of like 5%. Like, why bother? So choosing low oxalate plant options would be the best thing to do. Now, grains and legumes are high in phytates, which bind calcium strongly, and they produce these complexes which are insoluble in the small intestine and really make digestion and absorption really difficult for your body. So 32% of calcium from a dairy-based diet is absorbed, where only 5%, even like take something like spinach with, again, a high level of calcium, but a high level of oxalates, 5% from a plant-based diet is absorbed. So you can de-hull or take off that outside of like a cowpea, lentils, chickpeas. That can increase bioavailability, hence increasing absorption from legumes and grains. Now, as far as iron goes, iron in plant sources is called non-heme iron. That's in like leafy vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds. I think I have a list right here. Yeah, dried apricots, kale, raisins, whole grains, broccoli, tofu, So iron bioavailability can vary significantly depending upon the same or other food sources within the same meal. The level of phytates in the food source is the most potent inhibitor to non-heme iron absorption, reducing iron bioavailability considerably. So it's really important to know the level of phytates in the plant-based foods that you're choosing to eat. So again, something I didn't know back then. So it's really important to know what's going on with what you're eating, not just don't make it a guessing game. And also studies have shown that germinating, cooking, fermenting, dehuling legumes, and malting cereals can significantly reduce the phytate levels. So, oh, and by the way, if you have low iron, it's important to note that avoid drinking coffee or tea 2 hours after having an iron-rich meal, because the tannins and phenols, polyphenols, in both of them can inhibit iron absorption. So moving on to nutrient-nutrient interactions, that can also affect bioavailability. Calcium is another inhibitor of iron bioavailability due to competition for absorption along the intestinal wall. That would be especially when the two are eaten together in the same meal and the level of calcium increases, then the iron absorption decreases. And on the flip side of nutrient-nutrient interaction, foods rich in vitamin C can increase plant-based iron bioavailability because this vitamin bonds to non-heme iron to form a chelate, which is soluble and digestible in the small intestine. Oh, and just a quick hit on vitamin B12. It's generally understood that most plant-based diets lack vitamin B12, so it's really important to take a supplement or consume foods that are fortified with vitamin B12. Also, it's better absorbed in smaller doses, so you can have a fortified B12 meal or snack more than once a day, probably 2, at least maybe 3 times. So don't forget that supplementation. And lastly, the all-important fatty acids. Now, your body can convert a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, ALA, to EPA and DHA, but the conversion efficacy is low. You can get ALA in chia seeds, where are they? Flax seeds, walnuts, edamame, winter squash, hemp seeds, spinach, but we kind of avoid spinach, right? Now, the bioavailability of ALA is reduced by the presence of the omega-6 fatty acid, which you can see here, omega-6, which is abundant in sunflower oil, sesame oil, almonds, avocado, walnuts. Not a big fan of tofu, but if you are, that's okay. Now, LA, which is the omega-6 fatty acids, LA, competes with ALA for the enzymes to convert ALA to EPA and DHA. So that's nutrient-nutrient interactions. It's really important to know that. So it's really important not to have them both in the same meal. They can be in your diet, but you want to separate them, different meals, okay? So you want to shoot for a ratio in your diet of a 1:3 omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, a 1:3, okay? And again, in separate meals. That can be in your overall diet, okay? Also, protein, biotin, magnesium, and zinc can also increase ALA bioavailability. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot to digest. No pun intended. I hope I cleared some things up for you. I know I learned a lot doing a little more research in this plant-based diet, digging a little deeper. Again, don't forget to find out oxalate levels, phytates, I should say. Do some homework. It's pretty easy. With the internet, amazing. You can get all your answers, but again, watch your sources of the information. Also, wouldn't hurt to get a blood panel just to know where you're at, what you might be lacking in minerals and your LDL, HDL, triglycerides. It's better than making it a guessing game. You should really know what's going on in your body, and you could tweak your diet accordingly. So, all right, good luck with that plant-based diet. Keep going. Hope these changes should make it just more nutritious, more absorption of what you're looking for, and not as gassy as I was. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you soon.